This is Hot Mike.
Hot Mike.
On the networks of WDAY.
WDAY.
Here's Dom Izzo.
All right, welcome back, everybody. A little later than we like to get started. Second hour. Appreciate Mike coming by. No shortage of things to chat about there. And we'll keep, we've got our 2025. I'll do it now with the portal likely done. Roster preview for the buys, and we'll do that. It'll be available at Inforum.com either tomorrow or Thursday with things likely wrapped up. And granted, NDSU is going to add a couple more guys through the portal, but we'll see. Any other departures would come in April. But just to start laying things out with the guys they lost, you know, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, tight end is one I'm really interested at. Quarterback's going to get all the attention. There'll be plenty of time to talk about that. We'll get to that in just a bit. Speaking of quarterback, the now former starting quarterback for North Dakota State is out in New Jersey. As I mentioned, he left a week ago, tomorrow, to head to the Garden State to start preparing for the East-West Shrine game, which comes up at the end of the month. And actually, he's been out to Jersey each of the last 4 years after meeting our next guest. Tony Racioppi is a former collegiate quarterback, got a quick sniff in the NFL, and he's been a QB coach for the better part of the last decade, working with a litany of guys, and you're going to hear him talk about the guys he's worked with and the connection of how he met Kevin and Cam Miller, that's Cam's dad, and how this relationship began. And Cam's been out there during the off seasons each of the last few years, during normally March or April after spring ball is done, to fine-tune on some things, and that's where he's at now, starting to prepare for the NFL draft. I visited with Tony this morning. He's busy at his full-time job. So a little warning, the connection's a little wonky here, but you can hear him clearly, and we discuss everything about how this relationship began and, frankly, Cam's prospects of the NFL. Here's our conversation with Tony Racioppi.
I've had Cam Miller for his entire career. So what happened was he was a freshman at North Dakota State, right? He's an Iowa kid. I've trained a ton of the Big Ten quarterbacks over the years. I've had the Penn State guys, Trace McSorley and Sean Clifford, and I have obviously a huge connection with Iowa, So I did Nate Stanley's draft prep. I had Spencer Petras, and then Marco Lainez, who was my high school quarterback. I coached at a prep school in New Jersey called the Hunt School. He was a freshman here at Iowa. So make a long story short, pretty much Cam and his dad were trying to figure out who to kind of work with in the off season, and thought to Kirk Ferentz so much. And so that was the connection. So he would come out through his college career, usually like in the springtime, either before or after spring practice, and then the summertime, kind of getting ready for training camp.
Describe his development when you first got to work with him to when you saw him prior to this season at North Dakota State, and what it was, an A to Z from what you saw there?
No, I mean, there were already things in place. Coach's kid, right? His dad, Kevin's a fantastic high school coach, Hall of Famer in Iowa. So he, almost obsessed with details, and all the good ones I've had have been obsessed with, show me a way to get better. It could be one detail. It could be a footwork thing. It could be a front shoulder or a body weight thing where I hold the ball. And so he was always that way. I just think, in a perfect world, and listen, their coaching staff at North Dakota State is fantastic, phenomenal. Have the utmost respect for those guys. Coach Paul Sack I've known for a while because he's an Iowa guy. So really, in a perfect world, it's play there in season, get better in season, learn football, win, and then come here in the off season. We clean up a couple things, and then obviously go back and tell the coaching staff kind of what you did, and then I think as a college quarterback, that's the perfect scenario, right? Is you play for really good coaches in the fall, and then the off season you look to improve, obviously, on yourself. And again, really it goes back to the hours those guys can spend with guys. It's the old model of 25 years ago when you were the quarterback coach at whatever university, 12 months you got to coach that guy. With the way it is now, it's, season ends and they can't coach until spring practice for the football, so much of the off development with the quarterback has to do like what they want to do on their own. So he's been great. It's been fun to watch him. He's so competitive. He's such a winner. Such a high character kid. Just what they've had there over the years, and you're expected to win. So it's two things: you got to play well and you got to win. So and I think he's done obviously a great job of that through his career, and it's so awesome to watch that game on TV the other day with my I got three little kids, so they were jumping on me and yelling and screaming for him. So pretty neat to watch.
The pedigree at NDSU is pretty, it's stacked, the quarterback position. To see him develop now to become one of the very best in this school's history, I mean, you've worked with him. What gave you a sense that this kid has the potential to do that?
I think the heart and the will, I think there's such a drive in him. There's an almost like I was kind of under recruited. Listen, I've had people tell me at the FBS level, like after watching him play, really after junior year, they're like, "Man, we missed on him, didn't we?" I'm like, "Yeah, you did." So there's always been a will to get better and a drive to succeed, and he's always been able to do it, physically. Like he's got really good feet. Obviously, he's tough as nails, right? You can run him 25 times, sometimes games that they did, right, and he would just bounce back up and take a beating, and but at the same time, he can process information, and this is why I think it's going to bode well in the NFL. He can process information. He sees the field really well. He's naturally accurate. Throws with anticipation when has to, and he's got enough velocity. And that's really my whole thing with him was like, how strong can we, like from an arm strength standpoint, from a velocity standpoint, second level, third level, can we really drive the football like a pro? And I think he's only gotten better at that. And again, like he's here now with me. I'll see him later today, and we'll throw, and he'll get better. And that's who he is.
Quarterbacks, as you know, everybody compares. Tony, you've worked with so many at the next level. Who does he compare in your mind to potentially have a professional career?
It's always hard to compare them. I would say this: my whole thing with him is what are you getting with him, right? You're getting a elite competitor. Right, you're getting a winner. You're getting a high character kid. So you're getting the intangible side. He's tense. He's off the charts. And then on the field, right, you're getting a great processor. You're getting a guy that throws the anticipation, throws the accuracy, can throw the deep ball. Right, again, made some great plays obviously at the end of the season for them on some slot fades right to Lance and some big time throws, 3rd and 7. So like to me, he checks every box. He's athletic enough to move. It's 3rd and 7. People play man to man. He takes off. He picks up 15 yards, first down, and like backbreaking stuff for defense. So, for me, I think he has every opportunity possible, obviously, at the next level. And I think the interesting thing about the NFL now is you see a lot of kids are going back because of the NIL world. So guys with 1 year left that 5 years ago probably come out right and they're a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. They're not doing that. So it only helps our case because that's just kind of less guys in the middle of the draft there, if that makes sense.
I guess, what are you hearing on that? Because people out here, I think, again, he still doesn't get maybe the proper respect he does. Well, he's a good quarterback, good college quarterback. I don't know if he can play in the pros.
Sure.
You're in this. What are you hearing on potential for the next level?
I mean, I hear a lot of great things. I mean, the fact that, and I told him this when he got out here. I mean, this is the kind of kid he is, right? They win. He holds the trophy up. The next day, he gets a couple things together, and he's on a flight here. So it's. And that's who he is, so he's all about, okay, I checked that box, right? I set that goal. I did it. On to the next thing. So I think the beauty for him is that, he's in the East-West Shrine game, right? And he's going to stand next to Shador, and he's going to stand next to Cam Ward, and he's going to stand next to, some of the top guys right now in the draft, the big name guys. And listen, we get to go throw for throw, and be evaluated. And, how are we going to do in the classroom, right? We're going to learn. Are we going to ask good questions? Any interview process, I think he's a home run interview process. I think, North Dakota State does a great job, obviously, pro-style offense, where he understands fronts. He understands protections. He understands his hots. And again, that's all stuff that's going to bode well for him, So, did he throw for 7 million yards like some of these guys do nowadays with these offenses? No, but that's not the way they play, And you ask him, he would rather throw for 220 yards and win the game, than throw for 350 and rush for 100 and they lose by 5, So that's the way he's wired. And so I'm hearing all great things. It's just going to be, I've always looked at it like 3 games, right? So it's going to be East-West Shrine game is the first game for us, right? Combine, if he gets an invite, great. Second game, and then obviously Pro Day at North Dakota State is the third game. And then based off that, like, what do we get from an interview standpoint? Do people invite him in a house 30, or do they come out and kind of see him and spend some time with him?
Two last things. I really appreciate your time. The game against Colorado, how
Yes.
much do you think that helped? The way he played to
Huge.
not necessarily get his name out there, but say, okay,
Yep.
he's worthy of maybe us taking a draft pick on him, or he's a preferred free agent.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're always going to look at who the best team you play is, right? I tell guys that every year. It's like, listen, you threw for 300 yards against the worst team on your schedule. Like that, nobody's impressed by that, right? Like, what'd you do against the 2 best teams in your conference? If you're an FCS team, what would you do against an FBS team? So, and you go on the road, right, week 1. And I think obviously what helped them too is I think, if Colorado goes 3-9 this year, was it a good performance? Yeah, but like, are you that super impressed? No, but the fact that they had a great year too, and they had a lot of good wins just goes to show you kind of where he was at and where they were at as a team. So I think it was huge for him.
Where's his mentality at right now? Just, I know it's attacking. I know he never really takes a day off. He's been a master up here of just being in the film room all this past, heck, the last 2 years. Has he had a chance to decompress? Have you seen that, or is it just right attacking to get ready for what's to come at the Shrine game?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years, right? I put 40 guys in the NFL. So, my whole thing with him when he came out here is we got to figure out a schedule that, like, we're going to put work in, but we also have to get you kind of rested too, right? The balance of like putting the work in, but at the same time, I want you fresh for those phases that I was just talking about before, So we threw Thursday, and he was tired, obviously, so it's still a little sore. His ribs were a little sore from the game. And then I gave him off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday from throwing standpoint. We did a lot of classroom stuff and interview prep and that kind of world. Getting him on the board and talking situational football and talking 6-man protections. And again, he's so good at it between, he's obviously playing for his father and obviously the job they did out there. So, now we're going to kind of, it's like put the work in, but at the same time, how fresh can we be every day? That way, at the end of the day, it's all about when we go to East-West Shrine, we got to be clean from a footwork standpoint, right? We got to be accurate with the football. We got to make good decisions, and we got to throw with velocity. And the beauty of that is some of those guys that are, right now kind of being talked about is they're kind of like higher than you ranked. You're standing next to them, So if you're a competitor, which he is, that's what you want.
For the guys that you work with, does he compare anybody that you've worked with over the last 12 years?
From a mentality standpoint, pretty close to Kenny Pickett, who I've had for 9 years. I had him through his entire college career, did his draft stuff, obviously first round pick, and then been with him ever since, So there's the mentality, and a lot of times when Cam came out here, he was kind of with him, depending on time and schedule. So they get along really good. There's such a balance in our position, right? Of being confident, but also being humble enough to get better, right? So it's such a balance and a fine line of like, if you're too confident, sometimes there's an arrogance to you, right? And you're not going to work on things you should. If you're too off a leader in a locker room, So yeah. I think what he's done a great job of is being that leader, being that guy for that program, but at the same time too, if that makes sense.
I appreciate the time. I'll keep your number in case I need to bug you again. Thanks for the time this morning. All right, I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, listen, thanks for reaching out, and again, so excited for him. And the fun thing I think for me was that like I've been with him through this entire journey.
Yeah.
So like I remember when he came out here, and it was like he wasn't kind of good enough, right, from fans, and there was like such a chip on his shoulder because of that. And then obviously you leave. I told him the other day, I'm like, dude, you're a legacy player. You're a legacy player at one of the best programs in the country. So, and you did all that, and you didn't leave. Some guys would have left too, maybe, and chased some money and maybe went up a level, right? And he didn't do that either. So super proud of him.
Conversation I had with Tony Racioppi, that's Cam Miller's QB coach. Good dude, and some really interesting comments to take out of that. That last one I kept in for a reason because he mentioned the chip on the shoulder, which was evident in the national championship game from not winning the Walter Payton and how he played, and what he said the night of the Payton ceremony where There was a faction of Bison fans that wanted to see him replaced as the starting quarterback. That's been there. And I appreciate Tony's honesty on that and what he said. And that's why we kept it in there at the conclusion of our interview. I think there's some interesting takeaways on that. And knowing that he's going to be on the same field with those two guys, those are two of the highlight guys of quarterbacking this year in major college football. He already played Shedeur Sanders. He was out there with him. And what Dion said about Cam is still in my mind this morning of how he played in that game. Cam Ward is a former FCS guy himself who started at Incarnate Word, then Washington State, then Miami. He's going to be out there, have a chance to play. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that week goes in leading up to it. And the Shrine Game, as we talked about, when Cordell Volson went out there a couple of years ago, and they've put more emphasis in that. It's not just the Senior Bowl; it's the big one. And I thought what Tony said, and we've got to go to break because we're overdue here. What he said on the guys that have decided to come back, and I'll look right at Gronowski, who's going to go back to school, and a couple others that have opted to return, certainly doesn't hurt Cam in the evaluation process to say, is this a guy maybe worth taking a day 3 flyer on or a potential preferred free agency deal? The pool has shrunk. He's still in it. That can only help his chances of potentially playing at the next level. Appreciate Tony. We'll have him on again. He was really good. And I hope for you football nerds out there, you enjoyed that. We're due for a break. We'll come back, get a couple emails in. Tim Bergstrasser coming up, 10:35, head coach of the Dragon Men. He'll be joining us as we roll on this Tuesday morning. We're back after this.